first item is the charter petition, and would you like to introduce that?
Certainly, Madam President. I will ask Mr. Chris Van Schack, our Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, who is also our liaison for oversight with the Livermore Valley Charter School, to present you with a staff summary of our intense review of the renewal petition for the high school, along with my recommendation and any next steps. We also have our attorney, John Ye, present for questions from the board.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. It is difficult to follow up a $9 million savings with any sort of report, but I'll do the best I can to provide a brief and general overview of the, as Mrs. Bowers pointed out, a very exhaustive process of reviewing the charter petition. Just a brief history of the Livermore Valley Charter Preparatory High School. They did obtain a charter from the State Board of Education in 2010, began in the 2010-11 school year under their authorization. Their 5-year term expires at the end of this year, June 30th actually, that term expires. Education Code 47605 requires charter schools to seek renewal from the district first, and the one change would be they would not go to, if the district denied, they would not go to the county, they go straight to the State Board of Education. And again, that would be an appeal process if they were denied by our district. On September the 12th, the charter school delivered a renewal petition to the district office. We held a public hearing just a little less than a month later for community input, and here it is November 4th, within the 60-day limit, and the board will be taking action this evening. Our review team consisted of 11 people. You can see that the 5 major areas actually are there. Educational program, employee issues, student issues, budget, physical facilities, and then legal criteria. And you can see the folks who were involved in reading through and analyzing each of those sections and finding areas for potential improvement. In addition to the sort of introduction, which is affirmations and assurances, there are 16 criteria that need to be met, and so we reviewed each one. What we did is we highlighted what we considered to be potential areas for improvement, and so in each of those areas, and I won't review those exhaustively, but I will show you that in the left column there, it's did they meet the legal requirements, and in the right column were the number of changes that we requested. In some cases it was semantic changes, in some cases it was clarification of language, in some cases we were asking them to be more specific in terms of percentage increases for student achievement. And so a number of what we considered to be reconcilable changes, we made recommendations to the charter school principal. And so as you can see through the assurances and then through the first 4, they did meet legal requirements, and we did have a number of requested changes. In the areas 5 through 8, which included employee qualifications and procedures for health and safety and racial and ethnic balance, again, in all 4 years, they did meet legal requirements. In all 4 of those areas, we did find some subtle or not so subtle changes that we asked them to make. 9 through 12 include auditing, student discipline, how they handle retirement, student attendance alternatives. Again, in all 4 of these areas, we deemed that they had met the legal requirements, and we had identified some areas for possible improvement. The final 4, again, employee rights, dispute. They had to make an assurance that they would be the exclusive public school employer, and then the protocols for closing if that were ever to happen. Again, we deemed that they had met all legal requirements, and actually in these 4 areas there are very few changes requested. So overall, we found 46 areas that we deemed important to change in the charter petition. I met with Principal Dilly, and we reviewed each and every one of those, and he reviewed those with me and assured us that they would make the changes. He delivered those documents to me last Friday, and I've been looking through them since then, and they have met each of the 46 areas. There was 1 or 2 small language changes that I'll be requesting that he make in order to fully satisfy our requirements. We discussed a memorandum of understanding, which would be similar in type to the one that the board signed with LVCS. That would address additional areas of oversight that are not legally required by the charter petition, but are also important for us to have if we are the oversight agency. This MOU is, of course, based upon a template that is used by the State Board of Education when they authorize charters. LVCP has reviewed a draft of this. They have seen the things that we're asking for, and in principle, they have agreed to each and every one of those. There are still some things we have to hammer out in terms of language and some clarifying concepts. If the board were to consider denial, there are 4 conditions. One of these would have to be met. Either, number 1, the charter school would have to show us an unsound educational program. Number 2, the petitioners, we would have to deem them to be demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program. Number 3, the petition we would have to deem did not contain an affirmation for each of the conditions that are required, or we did not think it would contain a reasonably comprehensive description. So in each of these 4 areas, we determined as a staff that they were compliant. So based upon the analysis that staff has made, a superintendent's recommendation would be for the board to vote this evening on the authorization of a renewal petition contingent upon the completion of an MOU in the next 30 days and the finalization of the language changes that we had requested previously. Principal Eric Dilley is here if you have questions of the charter school. District Legal Counsel John Ye is here if you have questions from the legal perspective, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the analysis that was done by site.
Okay, so Dr. Dunlop, would you start?
First of all, I appreciate all the work that you and your staff did of reviewing that charter in very great detail. So thank you for that. And also the fact that I thought the charter was a really nice document, and with the changes, it should meet our needs, I think. So I really appreciate how this has gone very smoothly, and everyone's doing a good job, and it seems to be working with good cooperation with the charter school.
Mr. Rovicki? Nothing. Mrs. White?
As I looked at the proposed memorandum of understanding, it was impressive to me, the detail it went to, but on the other hand, the detail was old in some respects. There didn't seem to be an approach to the new way of looking at discipline for students. There wasn't, it talked about expulsions and such. It didn't talk about restorative behaviors and activities that are required now by is it state law or the state board's promulgations? I can't remember. And it also talked about old-fashioned things like almost base revenue limit and categorical programs, and we don't need that anymore. And I also appreciate that the basis for whoever conceived of the template is probably working on these very things. But I hope that as you deal with the memorandum of understanding, that it really reflects what we do today and what we're asking the charter school to do today in the current post-LCFF, LCAP world.
All right, and I will say that just today the county gave us a revised, updated State Board of Education modeled template, and so it's not a change. It really is just an update. So so that those things can be included. It isn't a substantive enough change to make it deter from the recommendation, but it would certainly make it more current and updated. The original MOU that was drafted in this time frame was modeled after the previous one, and some of those things weren't in existence. Okay. So we're all in that process of transition and updating, and I think it makes perfect sense to include that, and I can't imagine that the charter school would balk at that.
Okay, so it looks like the superintendent's recommendation is there for everyone to see. Does anyone have a motion that they'd like to make?
Yes, I would like to make a change in that recommendation. I'd like to move that we tentatively approve the MOU as it stands, and then final approve when the MOU is completed and all the changes made inside of 30 days.
Okay, if I understand, are you saying that you want to approve the petition?
The petition.
And then conditionally approve the MOU?
That's correct.
Okay. I understand. Is there a second for that motion? To approve the petition and contingent,
Contingent upon,
tentatively approve the MOU associated with the renewal petition.
Okay, so the only thing you've added is a tentative approval versus approval.
right, versus an approval, and then the MOU is completed with changes and additions and deletions, then we finalize it in, 30 days?
Within 30 days, so it'd be probably, hopefully by the next board meeting, but if not, the one after that.
Okay, but would not require an additional vote once that's taken care of.
No, I am saying to have an additional vote.
So,
You want the
A
additional-
final vote after we
so would it
reread
meet your needs to say we approve the petition contingent on finalization of an MOU, and we want to come back and approve the MOU? Either at this next board meeting on November 18th or the one in December.
Guess there's a good question for you.
Our attorney, Mr. Ye.
Good evening, John Ye, with Burke, Williams, and Sorensen. The reason that the superintendent's recommendation is phrased the way it is that under the education code, the board must actually take action to grant or deny the renewal petition within 60 days. And this is your last regularly scheduled board meeting before those 60 days expires. So instead of tentatively approving the petition, contingent upon the MOU, which technically wouldn't meet that requirement, the recommendation is to conditionally approve the petition and have that conditioned upon the MOU and the other changes to the petition being completed within 30 days. And that is intended to comply with the education code requirement that the board action take place within 60 days.
So it sounds like that the language that we have is what meets the conditions of law, either yay or nay.
Yes.
So any changes that we don't like at the end of 30 days, we are stuck with them because we've already voted to approve them.
No.
The way the board agenda actually proposes the recommendation is that if the changes, the conditions aren't met, if the MOU isn't entered into and the changes that are requested by the district not met, the approval would be rescinded retroactively as well. So there is the incentive for especially LVCP, but both parties to have that finalized within the 30-day period.
So we would still get to review the MOU before we would bless it before it was enacted.
Yes.
What's the mechanism for that then?
We're going to agendize it on a board meeting and approve it or disapprove it.
Well, I think there's a few steps in between as well.
But our part.
Right. Well, except for, no, I think the board has given some suggestions this evening, which we would begin incorporating. I know that Trustee Rogie sent some email comments this morning, which we would begin to incorporate. And so we're already getting feedback regarding the proposed MOU. We would ask Mr. Ye and Mr. Van Schack to work with Mr. Dilly or the representatives to incorporate some of the updates from the county. So I think it's going to be a very lively process. And then you could receive Friday updates between now and then about any revisions, because we have a 10-day rule that if you're going to vote on the 18th, you need to see something that is a revision. And then it would still be subject to, my understanding, and please correct me, would be subject to a board approval of the MOU as well as LVCP approval. They also would approve.
Is the process, Mr. Van Schack has actually been discussing reviewing the MOU with LVCP already, so that's a process that's already in progress, and it's intended with an eye towards the second reason we set it up this way was also in anticipation that there might be specific board feedback on the MOU, and therefore we wanted to leave the process open in which the parties could actually turn around and incorporate that board feedback before it came back to the board. The other approach would have been essentially to lock the board into approving the MOU as presented, and that wouldn't give the board the opportunity to make the changes that you've identified.
I think when the when the recommendation says mutually acceptable, that gives us the option to weigh in, yea or nay.
Can we weigh in? I guess I'm still unclear. We're not going to take a second vote after tonight on the,
But
If we don't approve the MOU, then the renewal petition doesn't go through.
no, I understand that.
The
Contingency, right.
blesses.
Blesses the whole thing, but to finalize the actual wording in the end of 30 days or whenever they finish the document, we don't do anything again with it. It automatically gets approved?
The petition.
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 Yeah, let me read how the board agenda item proposes that the recommendation read. Staff will recommend that the board authorize the renewal petition upon the conditions set forth above. If LVCP and the district are able to complete and sign the MOU within 30 days and LVCP agrees to modify the charter petition as requested by the district, approval would become final and the district would assume oversight responsibilities beginning July 1, 2015. If the conditions are not met, the district's approval would be rescinded by operation of law and without further action being required. So that's the protection and that's the incentive for the charter school to agree to terms of the MOU that are agreeable to the district as well.
Well, that's not my contention. It's we may not agree with what happens inside of the next 30 days.
But we're approving it.
But we're approving it, right, and that seems to be a final decision.
No, we're going to approve it at another meeting. The MOU
That's
is
what I'm
going
trying
to
to
come back.
Okay.
That's what we've said. It's either going to come back on the 18th, or it's going to come back in the December meeting for approval. And it's not done until it's approved.
Yeah, Mr. Van Schack has been discussing the MOU with LVCP with an eye actually towards the November 18th board meeting, which is within the 30 days. That's why the progress, they wouldn't be starting from scratch tomorrow. Actually, that process has been ongoing, and Mr. Van Schack has said that LVCP has agreed in principle to the MOU that we proposed. We left the door open for any modifications that the board identified tonight, which is why we've structured it to allow this 30-day period in which the parties could make changes to the MOU, instead of bringing a fixed MOU to you that you would have to approve tonight without being able to make modifications.
Okay, then I would like to rescind my my move and rephrase it as it is.
As stated by Mr. Ye when he...
Yeah, I'm going to go with that because I don't think I can redo it.
But you're also saying that mutually acceptable means
It's coming back for a vote.
an action by us
Exactly.
to make it acceptable.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there a second for Mr. Rogi's motion?
Yes,
Thank you.
I second it.
All right. And with that, Mr. Rogi, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. White.
Aye.
President Runyon,
Aye.
Dr. Dunlop,
Aye.
and myself, aye.
All right. So that motion carries unanimously. And thank you for your time
Thank you.
and your diligence.